It's Monday night, and we got the Rams and Dolphins. Your lineup decisions were already made on Sunday, more than likely, but you need some good luck tonight because you got to score X amount of points to win your fantasy matchup. Drop what you need in the comments below. We'll drop the rally cap on you to try and give you some of that good juju for you. But today, we're going to look at this matchup, look at how fantasy points can be scored, look at how they could not be scored, and everything in between with these players by going through the matchup, the strengths and weaknesses, and everything else. Before we dig in here today, you need to click that subscribe button right now. Tomorrow, we're going to go deep on the waiver wire. We got some wide receivers to look at, a few running backs to look at. We'll go 20 plus deep at all the positions. We'll do it on Wednesday. We'll do deep dives on all the trending players. And on top of that, like today, we're using these videos to help you set those lineups. Click that button. Stop missing out. Ric Flair's watching. Do not disappoint Ric Flair. First off, looking at this matchup here, Rams and Dolphins, we got a 49 over under. Vegas is saying, hey, points should be scored in this matchup at a high clip. Doesn't mean it will, doesn't mean it won't, but points should be scored in this matchup, which means we should see some fantasy contributors. However, we've seen games where there were a lot of scoring, but only a few players in that matchup getting it, but they were getting it at a high degree. There's probably going to be a good amount of fantasy points scored in this matchup. That is something you want to look at. This matchup is a tiebreaker for a lot of fantasy football assets out there, because the ball should be rolling. Looking at the last 3 times these two teams played against each other, their last meeting was in 2020. You really can't use that for information. That was like 4 years ago. That's too long ago. They tend to hit the under. We got the 49 over under right now. That's semi-high. I could see it hitting the over, but I also can't see it being so low on the under that is too dog shit for fantasy production. I think we're going to be okay. I think we'll at least get moderate scoring in this matchup. How that could happen is turnovers, slow play from both teams running the football, just killing the clock throughout the first half, and next thing you know, you're in a witching hour, and it's like 14-7 or something like that. That could happen. I just don't see it. I just don't see it likely, but I want to look at all ends of the spectrum here to see what could happen for us in fantasy football. I look for multiple fantasy contributors from this game. Looking at the quarterbacks, both defenses are about average. Allowing fantasy points to quarterbacks really depends on the matchup, and both these guys can sling the rock. And if you have them, more than likely you're starting them. I doubt anybody has both these quarterbacks and they're wondering which one to start. You already have your start-sit decision already made. So drop that in the comments below what you need. We'll drop that blue rally cap on you to help you out. Looking at the running backs here, Devin Achane's the man. He's the man. He's got the 4.3 speed. He's electric. He's getting the touches. He's getting the workload. You're looking at the matchup here against the Rams. They're averaging 16.5 PPR points per game in their last 3 games to running backs. That's 28.8% below league average. About the same in their last 5 games. So in their recent sample, they've been pretty locked down the running backs, but still they're giving up enough to help you in the box score. They shut down Kenneth Walker to 13.7, Aaron Jones to 11.5, Alexander Madison to 15.3, Josh Jacobs to 16.4. Last time a running back blew up on him was week 4, and that was DeAndre Swift. However, that's enough to get the job done. That's enough to get the job done. So you should expect okay results from Devin Achane. From when you look at the historical data from the season, Raheem Mostert should get ancillary work. You're really not starting him in fantasy football more than likely, but if you are, you're just hoping that he crosses the goal line. Any of these running backs could get it when they're in the red zone because they do split up the touches. Jaylen Wright gets a few touches here and there. You're really just gambling on him in DFS. Your traditional redraft leagues, you're not really touching him unless you're in like a 20-team league or something like that. Then you're really just hoping that the pop gun goes off with Jaylen Wright, and more power to you, but you are watching him for the long term. If either of these 2 running backs get hurt, you're looking at Jaylen Wright as a huge pickup for week 11. Looking at the wide receivers, and we're watching Tyreek Hill right now. We got to hope he's in this game because he could go off in this matchup. This could be a big game. He's dealing with a wrist issue. He's not been practicing. He's a game time decision. If he's out there, he's out there. It's not like it's a hamstring. He'll probably be okay and good to go if he's out there, and you're really just hoping he just brings in that one target and houses it. He's still a gamble due to that, but still, with your stud players, you don't know, and you might as well just risk the biscuit on it, and that's just not a take, but that's just process. 35.1 PPR points per game allowed to wide receivers. That's above league average. That's in the last 3 games, 32.2 in the last 5. They're about league average to a little bit above, really depending on the matchup. Jackson Smith and Jigba went off against them. Justin Jefferson went off against them. If Jaylen Waddle does something this season, this could be the matchup for that, especially with Hill banged up a little bit. Look out for Waddle. He's more of a gamble play, but kind of like a good gamble play that feels kind of okay to do, but you're still watching out for that. If Hill is out, you're looking at OBJ, maybe even Malik Washington. And they are sneaky plays, and you might be sneaking that more in a DFS lineup than your traditional redraft league, but if you mess around with that, more power to you. But Jonnu Smith has been getting a lot of run recently. He's been looking good in fantasy, been getting a lot of workload. If he's out, then Jonnu Smith could be getting more workload in the passing game. He's getting a 17% target share right now, and that could just rise up. And the Rams allow fantasy points to tight ends. It's about league average, and they really allow points to stud tight ends like a Brock Bowers, a Kraft, a McBride. Those are the tight ends that are usually going off against them. However, Jonnu Smith, highly athletic, an offense that's very explosive, fast-paced, Tua just throwing the rock with no mercy. That could allow for him to be productive. All tight ends are gambles because all tight ends, other than like Brock Bowers, Trey McBride, those top guys, are highly volatile. But this is a good matchup for a guy like this. Looking at the Rams running backs, and Kyren Williams is going to see all the snaps. We know this. He should volume himself into fantasy production. Miami is a little less than league average when it comes to allowing fantasy points to running backs, but they do allow something to the running back every week, and they are consistent to that. Ray Davis, 17 points. James Conner, 14.9. Tyler Goodson, 11.1. Stevenson, 19.2. Pollard, 18.8. And down the line, they will allow a few running backs to blow up on them, like James Cook, but that was a weird matchup if you remember that game. Zach Charbonnet, 25.7 points. That was a weird matchup as well. But still, Miami will give up a little bit to the running backs. They're bend but not break. Kyren Williams will get the touches. He should, at minimum, give you a 12 spot. He also has the potential to give you a 20 spot, but probably be around that 12 to 15 range unless something happens. He is due to cross the goal line. He didn't last week. He's been pretty steady with that. 3.7 yards per carry, too. You may want to watch out for that. But in a matchup where it's bend but not break with the Dolphins, it should be all right for Kyren Williams. You should feel good about that. You're looking at the wide receivers here, and you're ponying up. Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, they're going to go off. They're going to get targets. They're going to be using the passing game. Rolling. You shouldn't really have any start-sit decisions here. Demarcus Robinson has been a sneaky play. Since Puka and Cooper Kupp's been back, he's been sneaking targets out there, scoring fantasy points. That's a wide receiver for you to look at here. If you must gamble on this matchup on the cheap for DraftKings, other wide receivers in this offense you can also look at too for volume that could sneak out there, especially on the cheap, because they got good depth at the wide receiver spot. Any of those wide receivers could get it, but Demarcus Robinson has been the hot piece. And when you look at the matchup against the Dolphins, they're about league average when it comes to allowing fantasy points to wide receivers. Marvin Harrison Jr. went off. Mac Hollins went off against them for a little bit. Demario Douglas got a little bit against them. They had some down games to Tyler Boyd and Michael Pittman, but look at those offenses. This ain't those types of offenses. DK Metcalf went off. Shakir went off a little bit. Got you a 10.6. Not really off, but remember, that game was weird against Buffalo. Buffalo came in running it hard. Tua got hurt. All that stuff. Brian Thomas Jr., 14.7 PPR fantasy points. There's going to be fantasy production. I look for these wide receivers to be good. And I look for one of the ancillary wide receivers to get you a little something. Now you're looking at Colby Parkinson. You're looking at him in the offense getting targets and run. And the Dolphins are about league average when it comes to allowing fantasy points to tight ends. And they're allowing average 14 points per game. And honestly, mostly to Trey McBride, Noah Fant, and that's it. This could be a gamble here like all tight ends. Honestly, I'm not really looking at this as a must start. It's just something you're throwing in your lineup and praying to the fantasy gods that it hits for you. But those are the must start, sneaky starts, everything you don't want to start in this matchup. Remember, drop what you need in the comments below. I want to hear about it. I want to thank you for watching. Catch you on the next video.